is Two Men in a Bible here. I'm Jeff.
I'm Joel.
And we're on part 2 of the CO2 issue. Fiasco that we talked about a week ago. So we should probably get a little caught up. Jeff, I want to get into some of the legislation. Oh, by the way,
we have Jeff Magrum.
Our guest today is Jeff Magrum, who is fast becoming a leading expert, and I would say hero for North Dakota when it comes to the CO2 hoax, the CO2 being buried into the ground. Now, you might think, well, what's the big deal? You're going to find out real quick why this is a big deal that's affecting North Dakota.
It is wrong in every possible way.
And it's going to affect all of our lives because we talked last week about how the CO2 in the ground is attached to what will become social credit scores on how you use your land, the cars that you drive, the campfires you have in your backyard, how much cattle you have, is all going to be attached to your social credit score.
What kind of crop you grow.
And if we go to digital currency on top of that, then it's connected to the government being able to control where you spend your money and how much, based on your social credit score. So
believe it or not, eventually the government will say you cannot buy this particular item at all.
Yeah, because it's not green friendly.
Yep, it's not a green friendly.
So this is the latest and greatest of the green world trying to.
It's an amazing story, folks.
Yeah.
But
it's unbelievable.
Biblically
that's happening.
speaking, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Remember, the Bible teaches us that you will be told what you can buy and what you cannot buy.
Yeah. There's that Revelation 13.
Somewhere in there, yeah. Yep.
Having to do with the mark.
Yep. Mark of the beast.
Yeah. So I personally think the mark is digital currency in your wrist, your right hand, and it's also related to the AI that's coming. But
it's related entirely, however, to you worshiping the Antichrist. So that eventually will be the case. So you don't want to take the mark.
So basically, I'm just going to sum it up and then turn it right over to Jeff Magrum, who is a lawmaker in North Dakota, and he's being heavily attacked by a lot of big name companies and people because he's actually making a difference. I mean, I think he's brought a lot of good knowledge and attention to a lot of our state, to the landowners, to lawmakers. But this CO2 has been it's a hoax, but it's been considered a bad thing all of a sudden because they want to put it in the ground in North Dakota. They want to remove.
You need to understand that CO2 is absolutely required for our life. I mean, we breathe out CO2, but plants breathe in, if you wish to call it breathe in, but they take in CO2 and they expel oxygen. So without CO2, we don't have plants. We have to have CO2 in our atmosphere.
For our animals, for farming.
For everything,
yeah.
for our life. I mean, the elite want us to eat just vegetables. Well, guess what vegetables are made out of? CO2 is required for them to grow. So, but what the reality is here is these people truly want to reduce the amount of food that's available for human consumption. And one of the ways to reduce food is get rid of CO2. And so we're going to get rid of CO2 out of our atmosphere as much as we can possibly do. We're at 0.04%, not 1%. We're at 0.04% of our atmosphere is CO2. And at one time it was 0.12%, which is 1/3, of what it has been in the past. They're finding out now that the more CO2 we have in the air, the better our crops are, the better our. Jeff just mentioned last time that even the deserts are starting to produce.
Yeah, in very impoverished areas, it's
yes.
actually helpful for nations that have poverty.
Yeah,
and
we're finding out too. The more we study this, the more we understand that cattle are absolutely essential to the whole ecosystem. I am also opposed, folks, to these very large feedlots with 10,000, 100,000, a million cattle in one location. I think that's absolutely wrong. I think it should be spread out across the nation. But having said that, I mean, they're finding out that when they put cattle on a particular ground, that ground does way better than if the cattle weren't there. So, more and more and more, we're finding out we're getting rid of the things that benefit us and trying to destroy our food supply.
And Israel, you were saying earlier, is actually on our side on this.
Yes, they are. Israel, in the late 1800s, hardly had a tree growing in Israel, hardly a bush to be found in Israel. You could check that out by reading about Mark Twain's book on Israel, his visit to Israel. But in 1948, Israel became a nation. And since 1948, they've planted over 250 million trees. Today, Israel, I believe, is number one in export of citrus fruit. Citrus comes from trees, folks. They're finding out that their climate and their amount of moisture is being helped by having trees there. And so many of the climatologists of today say that trees take up too much moisture, and so we need to get rid of trees. And they're all in favor of burning the trees in Canada. Last year we lost to Canada wildfires, we lost an area equivalent to the size of the state of Ohio. I mean, that's a huge amount of trees lost. And as Jeff mentioned last time, they're just trying desperately to get rid of these trees, making it worse.
So, Jeff, let's get to the law now. We know CO2 is a hoax. We know that there's a lot of tax money involved, which is really coming from a government-created market, which is basically fascism, like Jeff told us last time. So you gave us a little hope at the end that there's a lot of people fighting this. What can you tell us about some of the laws that maybe have brought this to where we're at, and what laws maybe need to be, repealed or introduced that relate to the Public Service Commission and the common carrier status and all that kind of stuff? Can you give us a very simple, we're getting into a lot of terms that are hard for people, but in the simplest way possible, Jeff, what can we do? What can people do about this issue?
Well, one thing I just wanted to say is Joel mentioned we're at 0.04 or 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And the scientists that we met with said that should be double. There's a reason they pump carbon dioxide into greenhouses. And the higher the carbon dioxide, the less moisture necessary for the plant to use that carbon, to grow, because the carbon dioxide helps them create efficiencies as well in the plant itself. So just to say that, that's what the scientists said, we should be doubling our CO2 if we really want to have good growth. But as far as laws, I don't know if you guys seen the letter that Dave Hogue and Mike Leffer wrote to the Fargo Forum.
Yeah, they're the majority leaders. Yeah,
they're the majority leaders in the Senate and the House of Representatives in North Dakota, and they said that these laws have been being manipulated for the last 15 years to pave the way for this carbon capture. And then you have the governor of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, saying that we need to be carbon neutral by 2030. So there's an agenda by these individuals to follow this fascist system. Why? I don't know, other than the fact that there's a lot of money involved, and they're going to become richer than they already are, and their friends are going to become richer. So that's another reason why I'd like to know who's investing in it. So in 2019, and I guess I should have pulled that up, but there was a bill that said that the oil companies and so on didn't have to pay for use of the pore space in North Dakota. And so there was a number of legislators that opposed that legislation, including myself and you, Representative Jeff Overson, and Representative Ertelt and Rick Becker. And there was about, I think, 12 or 13 good conservative, patriot-minded legislators that voted against that. And I distinctly remember that bill because the lobbyists for the North Dakota Petroleum Council were literally stalking me from committee hearing to committee hearing. And the one guy, I don't want to say his name, but he'd go, Magrum, we need you on that bill today. And I'm like, no, that's stealing, man. And they're like, people don't know what's down there. Nobody knows. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. They're stealing. It's stealing. And so the law passed, because they come in and said, oh, this is good for coal, this is good for oil. And then the next election, they attacked both you and I and others. And Mike Schatz was another one. Ertel was another one that got attacked by these same individuals. And they found out later the North Dakota Petroleum Council and Doug Burgum were attacking us over our vote on that one particular bill because we wouldn't support it. So Northwest landowners filed a lawsuit, took it all the way to North Dakota Supreme Court. And last year, the North Dakota Supreme Court said, that's a stealing. You can't just take people's pore space. You have to pay them. So they had to go back and pay all them people. And they're furious about that.
Wow.
And so they were literally funding the Darker Future Alliance that's run by Pat Finken. They call him China Pat because the suspected, and he will not reveal his donors, but that he's using Chinese money against North Dakota legislators. Thus the name Chinese Pat. And
can we? I want to park there a little bit and let all of our listeners know that if you ever get an ad from Pat Finken or what he calls the Brighter Future Alliance, we call it the Darker Future Alliance.
Oh, he's the guy, huh?
Yeah. So that explains why when I was campaigning, all of a sudden there's these attack ads weekly coming in, huge expensive ads against me. A lot of it had to do with this.
That's the guy that went against Rick Becker.
Yeah, he's a guy, and all his ads are full of lies. So people let's just start campaigning against him ahead of time.
Say the name of that
coalition again. That's how important this issue is to them guys.
Brighter Future Alliance. Because we are standing in the way of a lot of money that's coming from a government-created market. We're not standing in the way of the free market. We're standing in the way of fascism, which is a government-created market. The CO2 is not a small issue. This is not just it's landowners' rights and.
Do this again. So the name of this company
is Brighter Future Alliance. They're a marketing company.
So if you get anything from Brighter Future Alliance, anything, you know that they are telling you a lie.
Right.
Everything in their advertisement, everything is a lie because this guy, he lied and lied and lied about Rick Becker, and the people believed him because of the words Brighter Future Alliance. I mean, that sounds like a really
and here's how he lies. So he'll take, for example, a bill that Rick may have voted no on an increase. And a good conservative Republican ought to be voting no on increases that are just bloating the government. And so instead of saying, oh, he voted no on the increase, he's saying, oh, Rick Becker wants to defund, and he did that to me. He did it to a pile of people. But who is Pat Finken being funded by? And now he is sponsoring a morning radio program by Mike Bell, who you guys should be very suspicious of anything Mike Bell says, because I think he's one of the worst talk show guys. And
Mike Bell is not a Republican.
I don't.
He made his living being a lobbyist in Washington for 20 years. That show is run by lobbyists. It's supported by the Darker Future Alliance, the Petroleum Council, the Lignite Energy. These are lobbyists. These are the enemy of the people.
Right.
They are not working for the people. They are working for self-interest. We are working for the people.
Right.
And that's the problem. We need to get the lobbyists out of the Capitol because they are working against our own citizens. And many of they give money to legislators for their campaigns. And then they call in their marker, so to speak. They say, hey, we helped you get elected. Now we need you today on this bill. And that's how they influence these guys to vote for their legislation. And so, but that morning show you're talking about is a lobbyist show. It's funded by lobbyists. The guy talking on there is a lobbyist. It's they are the enemies of the people of North Dakota.
And that's on 550 AM, which by the way is a good radio station in the afternoon because you got Daryl Lease, who's one of the good guys. but it's totally run by lobbyists, that talk show, and the host
I don't know
himself,
how
Bell.
good they are, Jeff, though.
Bell
Jeff,
is a lobbyist, huh?
yeah, he's a lobbyist. He was spent 20 years in Washington, D.C. lobbying.
As a lobbyist. And now he's pretending to represent North Dakota when really
he doesn't represent anybody.
No.
He doesn't care about the humans.
Yeah.
He cares about his pocketbook.
That's why the Lord said the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And you see that it's all about the money. There's no principle here. There's nothing good about what they're doing. It's all about the money. That's all that matters to them. More money.
Well, billions of dollars are supposed to come into North Dakota for this.
Of tax money. It's not free market money. Yeah. That's the thing you have to remember.
Tax. Even the pipeline has a 10-year tax exemption.
And folks, if as a lander, if you buy into this, if you make a deal with Summit Carbon Copper, you need to know that by law, that the lawmakers put in after 10 years, when that contract is over, that land becomes property of the government.
The state.
It's no longer of the state.
Area.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So, give us some hope now, Jeff, for what are some laws that we can be working on to reverse this? And let's go back to the hope of who's all fighting this. I know there's landowners in Iowa and South Dakota, all over that are fighting it. How good are our chances, and what kind of laws do we need to put in?
Well, I would say our chances are really good to stop the pipeline, just predicated on the fact that South Dakota has a referendum on their law, which was actually deceitfully named the Landowners' Bill of Rights, which actually takes away the powers of the counties to regulate pipelines in their county, because many of the counties in South Dakota were listening to their landowners, so they rejected the permit requests or permit requests by Summit Carbon Solutions. So then the state had a bill and tried to take over local control or local jurisdiction on pipelines, and it passed and was signed by Christy Noem. So the people got in 3 weeks, got 40 or 30,000 signatures in 3 weeks. And it's going on the ballot in November. And I expect it to reverse that law. So if they refer that law, that pipeline is really in trouble.
So let me clarify, because there's a lot there. So what South Dakota did was the lawmakers and even Christy Noem, who's normally one of the good guys, but on this one,
she's bought and paid for by Summit Carbon Solutions.
They gave the state the authority to have over the counties.
Over county jurisdiction.
And it should be the other way around. Now, North Dakota is in that same boat, aren't we?
North Dakota PS, there's two laws that they conflict each other. One says the counties have jurisdiction, one says the state does. The PSC chose the one that the state has jurisdiction, and they're saying they have jurisdiction over the counties because a couple of the counties, Emmons and Burley, said they're not going to, they would probably not issue a permit to build in these counties. So now they went to the PSC, and the PSC ruled, we have jurisdiction. So
there's too many liberal Republicans right now that are in the tank for the CO2 hoax, unfortunately. So to fix that in North Dakota, that's going to be a tough fix, to give the counties back their authority in their jurisdiction. Is that, or do you think we have a chance?
Me and Sue-Ann and Brandon had the bill to put the jurisdiction back to the counties in North Dakota during special session. And then we had to introduce our bill, remember, to see if it would even get to make special session. And they killed it in that original first committee. Yeah. They wouldn't even let us get it into.
But, a lot of those same people are still in the legislature. So,
our legislature is captured. They're captured by lobbyists. We probably won't get a change there. The only way is through public pressure. The people need to start rising up. And you said it earlier, everybody's like, well, that pipeline isn't in my backyard. I don't need to pay. A lot of people don't even know this fight is going on. Most people don't. And a lot of the legislators are, well, it isn't in my legislative district. I don't want to get involved. I've heard that from several of them. It will affect everybody, every single person in this state. This is just the beginning of the whole carbon credit system. It's a bad thing. They're pushing this fascist system. And so everybody needs to get involved in this fight and just stop it. Stop the insanity.
So it really could
I mean,
only be stopped through a measure, probably, or
the way to stop it would be for the public to rise up and tell their legislators, we don't want this. We need to work to stop it. As far as common carrier, Heidi Heitkamp actually, when she was Attorney General, sponsored a measure to put it in the Constitution that eminent domain can never be used for economic development or create jobs or tax revenues, and unless they're a common carrier. So the definition of common carriers, a pipeline that say I want you to carry my product to market, whether it's CO2 or oil or water or whatever. So a common carrier would be like a highway system. You can use the pipe to transport your products. So they have to prove that they are willing to transport my product, and they have to be willing to prove that they're willing to sell my product on the other end. So if I want to sell you oil and I want to pipe it to Minot, they have to prove that they are a common carrier, that they're going to carry my product to your market. And that has not been proven yet, because they are the ones they're the ones capturing. It's their equipment that's capturing the carbon. It's their pipeline piping the carbon up here, and it's their amalgamation area that they're disposing the carbon into. So they're not a common carrier. They're not, I can't just say, hey, I need to get rid of my CO2 from my chimney here. I want to plug that into your pipeline. That's not a possibility.
Well, when I think of Jeff, when I think of common carrier, I think of things like electricity, water to your house, fiber optic lines, telephone lines. Those are common carriers that you can understand where they have to go across highways. They go across people's land because it's a benefit to the common. It's carrying something that is common to everybody.
Well, they would claim that getting rid of carbon out of the air is a common benefit. And that's where they're coming from. But
the reality is
they're wrong. We should be doubling the amount. We should be at 0.08. And we've even been to 0.12 before. So
I see.
They're lying to the public by suggesting that 0.04 is high. It's not high at all. In fact, it's low. And yet they're still trying to take it out of the atmosphere. And the reason they are is because they want less crops, they want less food produced, because they want less population.
Okay.
Right now we have 7.8 billion people on planet Earth, and they want that population to be down to 500 million, so 500 million. So we're a long ways from that number. There's speculation. I don't know. I mean, I didn't do the math on this, but there's speculation, and there were 20 billion people living when Noah's flood happened. 20 billion. So
that's more than we have now.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Wow.
Of course, back then there weren't the oceans, so there was a lot more land too.
Well, there was one big chunk of land, but yeah.
Well, Jeff, we got 2 minutes left. Would you do your best to just sum everything up in 2 minutes?
What needs to be done?
Yeah, what the problem is and what's the solution.
People need to get involved, and they need to voice their opinion to their local public officials, whether it's mostly the state legislature. We need to get these legislators to get on board with correcting this whole idea that we need to capture carbon and go away from that and stop. We actually are funneling money to the coal mine through this Project Tundra, state money, to do carbon capture, ironically. So we need to reverse that somehow. Jeff, I don't suppose Kelly Armstrong will help us. So I think they need to go to their county commissioners, really is the best place to go right now.
Okay, I am a lawmaker or I'm a county commissioner. Call me, you're a citizen. Call me in 1 minute. What should they say? They got a lawmaker on the phone. What words should come out of their mouth?
Tell them to stop supporting the carbon capture, the fascist movement that we're seeing. That's really about all they can do, and get educated on it. There's a lot of education out there, starting with listening to you guys, the climate conversation, just doing some research on what is carbon dioxide and how is it advantageous to humankind in the plants.
Can they would you give out your phone number, Jeff?
Yeah, it's 701-321-2224. Anybody wants to call me, or jeffmagrum@gmail.com, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about it.
And he's a senator. You can find his number online.
Do it again.
Say it
your
again.
Number again.
321-2224, and that's 701 for North Dakota, and then jeffmagrum@gmail.com. Magrum. Yeah.
All right. Go, Jeff. Thanks for being on our show. We're out of time.
Thanks, guys.
God bless. See everybody. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.